Hello, how are you? My name is Jeremy. I'm going to be reading from Essentials of Strength Training and Conditioning, 3rd edition. Not the 4th, but the 3rd edition. This will be page 115. Mistakes that can lead to anaerobic overtraining. The overtraining state is associated with damage to or negative physiological alterations in neuromuscular system. A mistake in any acute program variable could theoretically contribute to overtraining syndrome if it is repeated consistently over time. Overtraining classically was thought to be a function of either chronic use of high intensity or high volume, or a combination of the two. Intensity interacts with volume, i.e. the sets times the reps, to provide a potent stimulus. Too rapid a rate of progression in the resistance can also result in overtraining. Mistakes in the real world are often due to highly motivated athletes using a high volume of heavy loads with high training frequencies and taking little rest to recover from such workouts. The number of sets is an important factor in the calculation of total work or volume of exercise. Volume has been shown to be important for continued gains in performance. Conversely, an excessively high volume of exercise can create a stimulus that exceeds the athlete's ability to recover from the stress and may result in excessive soreness and residual fatigue. Training periodization consists of careful planning to avoid overtraining. Alright, hormonal markers of anaerobic overtraining, page 116. In addition to simply monitoring performance, some have used other markers to characterize anaerobic overtraining. Many studies have examined hormonal responses to overreaching and overtraining. Overreaching has been shown to decrease resting concentrations of testosterone and IGF-1. But to augment the acute testosterone responses to resistance exercise is in trained individuals with previous exposure to overreaching. Volume-related overtraining has been shown to increase cortisol and decrease resting luteinizing hormone and total and free testosterone concentrations. Volume-related overtraining. In addition, the exercise-induced elevation in total testosterone may be blunted. Intensity-related overtraining, however, does not appear to alter resting concentrations of hormones. Fry and colleagues reported no changes in circulating testosterone, free testosterone, cortisol, and growth hormone concentrations during high-intensity overtraining. 10 1-rep max sets of the squat exercise each day for 2 weeks reported no changes in circulating testosterone. Endocrine responses appear to require longer than 1 week of monitoring in order to serve as adequate markers. The most effective markers are those associated with sympathetic overtraining syndrome, because this may be the first response to anaerobic overtraining. Alright, psychological factors in overtraining. Mood disturbances, as determined from a profile of mood states, have been associated with increased training volumes. Subscales from this profile have been used successfully to identify athletes who suffer from overtraining syndrome and exhibit the classic inverted iceberg profile. Heavy resistance training is accompanied by decreased vigor, motivation, and confidence. Raised levels of tension, depression, anger, fatigue, confusion, anxiety, and irritability, and impaired concentration. Altered psychological characteristics are also related to changing endocrine profiles. Many athletes sense overtraining by the associated psychological alterations that are often observed before actual decrements in performance occur. Monitoring the mood and mental state of an athlete is very important to gain insights into overtraining. Cool. We'll go into detraining. Detraining is the cessation of anaerobic training or a substantial reduction in frequency, volume, intensity, or any combination of those three variables that results in decrements and performance and loss of some of the psychophysiological adaptations associated with resistance training. The magnitude of strength loss depends on the length of the detraining period and the training status of the individual. Detraining may occur in as few as 2 weeks and possibly sooner in well-trained individuals. In recreational trained men, very little change is seen during the first 6 weeks of detraining. Strength reductions appear related to neural mechanisms initially, with atrophy predominating and as the detraining period extends. Interestingly, the amount of muscle strength retained is rarely lower than the pre-training values, indicating that resistance training has a residual effect when the stimulus is removed. However, when the athlete returns to training, the rate of strength retainment is high, suggesting the concept of muscle memory. Periodization of training is an attempt to provide adequate recovery while preventing detraining. Responses of various physiological variables to detraining are shown in figure 5.6. We are going to go into the conclusion on page 118. Adaptations to anaerobic training are specific to the type of exercise performed. An individual's gender, age, nutrition, prior fitness levels, and training motivation affect adaptations. Integration of multiple training programs for an athlete require careful planning and monitoring to make sure that no incompatibilities or overtraining occur. Explosive training evokes marked increases in muscular power, whereas more conventional heavy resistance training mainly increases muscle size and strength. Anaerobic training, resistance training, sprint, plyometrics, agility, high intensity, interval training elicits specific adaptations in the nervous system, leading to greater recruitment, rate of firing, synchronization, and enhanced muscle function that enable increases in strength and power. Anaerobic training also has positive effects on bone, muscle, and the associated connective tissues. The entire musculoskeletal system undergoes a coordinated adaptations for exercise. Athletes undertaking strenuous exercise training experience changes in the force-generating capabilities of muscles, resulting in a coordinated and proportional increase in the load-bearing capacity of bone and other connective tissues. Anaerobic training can increase skeletal muscle mass, force-generating capability, and metabolic capacity, and may lead to a subtle alteration of the endocrine system that enhance the tissue remodeling process. Anaerobic training generally results in fewer acute and chronic responses in the cardiovascular and respiratory system, although low-intensity, high-volume resistance exercise produces some responses that are similar to those with aerobic exercise. Taken together, improved neuromuscular, muscular skeleton, endocrine, and cardiovascular function contribute to enhanced muscle strength, power, hypertrophy, muscular endurance, and motor performance, all of which increase athletic performance. The adaptation observed in athletes are directly related to the quality of the exercise stimulus and accordingly to the levels of progressive overload, specificity, and variation incorporated into program design. The scientific basis of program design is ultimately seen in the effectiveness with which the athlete improves performance. Cool, that is ended on page 118. That was just a conclusion. That was, I think, hormonal markers of anaerobic training, psychological factors in overtraining, detraining, and then the conclusion. See ya.